Okay, I think we are live, so.
Okay, confirmed. Given we are live, I will go ahead and call this Tuesday, February 8th, 2022, 6 p.m. ZDRB meeting to order. I will pass it over to staff to do a roll call, please.
And I'd like to introduce Yvonne Spence. Yvonne Spence is an interim town clerk while Eddie Gomez is home being a new parent. So he welcomed a baby girl, and Yvonne, we're lucky to have Yvonne to step in, and she'll be clerking today's meeting.
Okay.
Wonderful. Hi, Yvonne.
Hi. So go ahead and take the roll. Michael, I hope I say this name correctly. Is that Zarosik?
I'll give you a passing score.
Can you say it for me so I can get it right in the future?
Zagorsek.
Okay, thank you. Stephen Miller. Stephen is absent.
He is present.
No, he's actually there.
Oh, he was the one in, okay.
He's on the one on his cell phone.
Gotcha.
Here.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Confirmed.
Kimberly Cook. I see
Here.
you. Hillary Tripp.
Here.
And Michael Jordan.
Here.
Okay. It's like everyone is present.
Thank you. Everyone is present and confirmed. At this time, as per the tradition, we will pledge allegiance. Realize there is no flag, so we'll use a virtual flag. And if we would respectively stand and pledge allegiance to the flag before moving forward. I pledge allegiance
To
to
the flag.
America, the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, has anyone anything to add to the agenda? Don't believe there were any additions. Going once, going twice. Not. Someone like to make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
Since everyone is here, I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion has adopted, and don't believe minutes were produced from the previous meeting. It's been a while since we've had.
Chair Zagorsky,
Yes.
all votes need to be roll call votes because we're in these virtual hearings. So if you guys could repeat the roll call vote, and Yvonne will take the.
Okay. So we had a motion from
Member Cook.
Kimberly Cook, and we had a second from Hillary Tripp. And so I'll do the roll call vote. I'll start with Michael Jordan.
I accept. Yeah.
Okay. Hillary Tripp.
I approved, agreed.
Okay. Kimberly Cook.
Yes.
Stephen Miller.
Yes.
Okay. And Michael Zarosik.
Aye.
Okay. That's a 5-0.
We'll use that process moving forward. Thank you, Kirsty. There are, don't believe minutes were sent from the previous meeting, so there is nothing to adopt. Before we move to any public comment, I think we have some participants here on Zoom. So as we've been doing these things virtually, I think it's a good reminder for anybody who is a participant who may be listening. There will be a staff presentation. We will ask questions of the staff. Then the applicant can come up and make comments, and we'll ask questions. Then any public comment, and then we'll discuss. So it just helps to keep things in order. So if any of the participants who are watching ideally could wait until we move to that portion of the flow, that would be much appreciated. Of course, we can do Q&A after that. So just a reminder. So if I do cut anybody off, it's purely to go through the process.
And we are checking the public comments at Wyville email account for members of the public who might be curious on submitting a public comment.
Okay, I was going to open it to public comment in case there was any.
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. Thank you. With that, I will close the public comment period, and we'll go to the first agenda item.
So I believe this is a little bit past due, based on the ZDRB bylaws. There are a chair and a vice chair, and I believe this would hand the torch back to the members of the ZDRB, but we are looking to nominate a new chair and vice chair for the ZDRB.
So just a clarification of the process. My interpretation of that would be as simple as somebody to be nominated. And if people were supportive of that nominee, they would second and then vote in favor. We would do that for the chair, and then we would repeat the process for vice chair. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
I would like to thank Chair Zagorczyk for his service for a couple of years now. And in light of just keeping everybody involved, I would like to nominate Stephen Miller to the chair position, if he would accept that.
I second.
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
Soon to be former chair Zagorczyk is
Okay.
second.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to nominate Stephen Miller for chair. I'll do the roll call vote, unless there's any discussion that needs to be taken.
I guess Stephen gets the right to accept the nomination, right?
Okay,
I do accept the nomination. Thank you.
great. Okay, I'll do the roll call vote. Michael Jordan,
Yes.
Hillary Tripp,
Yes.
Kimberly Cook,
Yes.
Stephen Miller,
Yes.
Michael Zagorczyk.
Yes, aye.
Okay, 5-0.
Okay.
Go to-
The motion is approved for member Miller to become Chair Miller. On to Vice
Mhm.
Chair. Any nominations for Vice Chair? Well, I'll go ahead and we can move forward in order. I believe Member Cook was formerly chair and has moved it on to me, but Member Jordan has been with us for a while and has not occupied any of the supposed chairs. So I would like to nominate Member Michael Jordan for vice chair.
I will second that.
Thank you. I would accept that.
Okay. Up to the roll call vote. Michael Jordan,
Yes.
Hillary Tripp,
Yes.
Kimberly Cook,
Yes.
Stephen Miller,
Yes.
Michael Zagorczyk. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Butchered that one, so sorry.
practice makes perfect. Yes.
Thank you. That's a 5-0.
And as a reminder that it is a 1-year rotation, and we did with the pandemic and some of the canceled meetings it extended, but it'll be a 1-year rotation. So,
Great.
Great.
thank you very much. With that, the motions are approved, and I presume that it will take effect in the next ZDRB meeting.
Oh,
You're on mute, Michael.
Sorry about that. That was really strange. I don't know what I said something really intelligent and thoughtful, but there's no way I could replicate. Something about it being 1 year, and in the spirit of being efficient, moving forward to item 7A, public hearing for 6765 Jefferson Street.
Okay, and then just a reminder, so I think Stephen and Michael, you'll have to recuse yourselves.
okay. Are you going to temporarily remove us from the chat room so that we're not?
I'll put you on hold so we can't hear you and you can't hear the hearing, and then I'll bring you back after the action has taken.
Perfect. Thank you.
Christy, could I ask you to speak up a little bit? It might be me, but I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
Sure.
And then just let me know when you're ready, Kirsty.
Okay. New Chair Miller and new Vice Chair Jordan are on hold. You may begin.
Okay, great. Well, good evening, Chair Zagorczyk and members of the board. I'll introduce myself again just because we've only met once in this platform. Diane Levine, Assistant Planner with the town. You'll also see Kyle Johnson, the new Assistant Planner for the town. So the application before you today, actually, let me go ahead and share my screen with you guys now. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So the application before you today details the exterior modifications of an existing home at 6765 Jefferson Street. The renovations include refacing the home to create a more balanced curb appeal, including a new covered porch and a new attached single car garage. The garage would be located on the back half of the lot. The applicant would also be making exterior modifications to an existing ADU that is not visible from the street, and the purpose in that would be to make the designs consistent with the proposed main home's design. The addition of the garage would require an authorization of a 3-foot variance to reduce the required setback from 8 feet to 5 feet. Please note that this setback is to the easement and not to the property line. So here we have the existing home. You can see the existing driveway here, and just on the other side of these bushes is the easement. And I went ahead and took some photos to sort of better show you. I'm sure you're all very familiar with the town, but so here's the 18-foot wide easement we have. And that leads to 2 properties in the back. So the easement encumbers the subject property for the benefit of the properties behind it. I can also show you the plans to better describe the setback that I'm talking about for the variance. Okay, so here you see the 5-foot setback, and that's from the building to the property line or the fence. Now on this side, because the code requires a 13-foot total side setback, that would mean that we would need an 8-foot setback on the north side of the property. And that would be 8 feet to the easement line, not the property line. However, in order to successfully construct the garage, there would need to be a 3-foot variance, meaning that this could be reduced to 5 feet in order for them to develop the garage, and that would be a 5-foot setback to the easement line. Now, as you're probably aware, a typical setback is from a building or portions of a building to the property line. However, because of the easement and the evaluation that needs to occur from the building, the proposed garage, to the easement, if it were calculated like they typically are, it would completely exceed the setback requirement. But because of this easement, that is not the case. So let's see. So in order to have the benefit of the garage, we would need the proposed garage to be reduced to a 5-foot setback, opposed to the 18 to meet the 13-foot total side setback. Now, that is also what makes this property unique. And I'm sorry, let me make sure I'm touching on everything I want to for the variance. So we do agree that this variance should be authorized by the board. We do recommend it because we feel that the general purpose of Title 17 and the support for the general plan is met, still met with if this variance were to be approved. Typically, the intention of the side setbacks are to protect things such as massing, which I'm sure you're aware, sort of a noise buffer to adjoining or adjacent properties, and also safety measures like access to utility lines or the like. And all of those would still be met even if the authorization for the variance was granted. So that's where we get our decision to recommend that. And additionally, all the findings required per the Yountville Municipal Code 17-204-060, those can all be, we feel that they can all be met. I'll go ahead and pull up the PowerPoint, which you guys have probably seen. Let's see if I can show you. Shoot, did it stop sharing? Sorry about that.
No problem. Good.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna show this one. Okay, so here's the rendering after the renovations have been completed. And in addition to evaluating the variance request, we would also ask that you review the exterior modifications. All the design guidelines and standards that are applicable to the property were tabled in the staff report. And the way that I set that up was we included the standard as the code presents itself. And then we included the proposed detail of the project, and the last column indicated whether the code was met and the compliance was met with the code. Now, all of the design standards and guidelines were met through with this property outside of our request for the variance, so that side setback. You can see in the rendering that the gable roof form is being replaced with a hip roof form. I do want to point out that there was a small error in the staff report where we were discussing the roof pitch. The YMC states that the main building should have a minimum roof pitch of 4x12. And I had stated in the staff report that it was 4x7. That was just an error on my part, and it's actually 7x12, so it does comply with the code. Additionally, the PowerPoint that you were provided did say that the front porch was approximately 180 square feet. It's a slightly larger than that when it was calculated on our end, and it was closer to about approximately 240 square feet. Of course, all of the code items related to both of those have been met, and we can also specify both the roof pitch and the square footage of the front porch if you guys wish in the conditions of approval to lock that in as we've discussed here. So that is pretty much all I have. It's a pretty simple, straightforward project. We do have the applicants here, Peter and Anthony with Vine Homes. If you have any questions, they can be directed at me, and they can chime in if they feel that they need to. Are there any questions or concerns about the project?
I would, just for the sake of process, I would prefer for in the interim for members of ZDRB to only interact for clarifying with staff, and then if that's okay, we'll go to the applicants and the
Yes, of course.
Okay. Yeah, because I do have some questions just about the variance, but I won't go first. I'll open the floor, of course, to the other members If they have clarifying questions. Yes.
So I wanted to make sure I understood, will this be a single or a double garage?
A single garage.
Okay, and is that part of the variance, that it would be a single garage, or is that already understood that that's permitted?
So the garage is permitted. It's just the setback that's required.
And could you just clarify what makes this lot exceptional? I was just reading the code that there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances applying to the property, just in your view, Diane?
Yeah, so we see the easement as what makes this property different than other properties. A typical property would usually have enough room to create that side setback and have the benefit of a garage, because they don't have that easement there that they have to take into consideration and for all intents and purposes subtract from the setback.
Okay, thank you.
For Cook.
Yeah, just a couple questions. So this is not I know the footprint remains the same, but they will not be tearing down the exterior walls?
No. There is one portion that I think it's near the left side of the patio, like you saw on the existing home. Yeah, so that portion
The concrete wall
changed, yeah.
Okay, but otherwise they're leaving the walls and just reskinning them. Were there any comments from the neighbors who use the easement driveway? Did they have any objections or support?
We did we didn't reach out to them specifically, but we did send out every homeowner in the 300-foot buffer the notice, and we didn't receive any comments.
Okay. The ADU in the back, you noted that in conditions of approval that you would make sure that it didn't cause any noise or any problems to the properties in the back.
Yeah, the placement
you got that.
Of the HVAC.
Yeah. And the ADU is actually on the property line. There's nothing we can do at this time to change that.
Yeah, it's existing, and they're not doing, it's just exterior modification, minor modification.
Okay. It's really a lovely remodel.
It really is.
It's going to look beautiful. It's nice. Okay, those were my questions. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Member Cook. I have some questions. So the easement, I think it's clear, but I'll just do it for the sake of thoroughness.
Yeah.
What is currently on the easement?
So it's basically just an access driveway to the properties in the back.
Okay. And the current footprint of the house, is it to that depth, or are they planning on expanding the house?
No, so they're going to be removing a small portion, like where I was mentioning, near the front of the home on the left-hand side near the porch, but the footprint isn't, the footprint is changing, but the square footage isn't changing.
I guess my question is and I apologize, it's not really clear to me on this particular plan.
That's okay.
I'm curious as to whether the addition of the garage is further encroaching towards the easement, or the edge of where the garage is exactly where the current house is.
No, so it would come out further. I can show you really quick. So this portion of the home, this is where the existing residence is, and you can see that this is just labeled new. So it does come out 12 feet.
Right. And then, so the question I have is the current easement, though. I mean, I realize this is just an artist sketch, but there is a fence and a hedge.
In the rendering?
In the rendering, yeah. So, because what I'm trying to understand is the intent of the 8-foot easement, is what exactly? Because it's one thing if it were open, but it's another thing if essentially it's just 5 feet and there's a wall or a fence there. whether there's an easement on the other side is secondary. Technically, it could be somebody's driveway and not part of an easement. So to me, I just question, I do understand the nature of an easement, but I'm also trying to understand if the structure of it, and if you look at it, if I were to walk by and not know that the driveway on the other side was an easement, I would just say, hey, how did they get away with a 5-foot encroachment, 5 foot versus 8 feet? I guess
Okay. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I'm just not sure. Kirsty, do you have input on how that may affect?
Yeah, I guess to me, it's still gonna listen similar to other properties because the side setback is 5. Combined, it's asking for 8 for a combined 13. So it's already, so the easement 5 feet was our minimum direction that we gave the applicants, saying every other property of a 5-foot side setback is typical. In this case, the code asks for 5 on one side and 8 on the other. So the variance is just the 3 feet. Because the typical side setback is 5 feet.
Okay.
In this situation, it's a combined setback of 13. So we need to come up with an 8-foot side setback on that side. So if you look around other properties, typical garage to fence line is 5 feet.
Okay. Yeah. And this is just me being thick, and I'm sorry about it. So if it were, never mind that there was an easement, if it were another property line, and the garage as it stands would be 5 feet from that property line, would that make it acceptable?
I think if the easement line was a property line, we would be recommending the findings, that you make the findings for the variance, whether it be an easement or a property line.
And
an 18 feet wide easement for access is a pretty wide easement. Right.
And I don't mean to get stuck in a technicality. I'm just looking for precedent to understand it, because if is it because, so I guess, is it, if it were a property line, they'd be required to have an 8-foot setback, but because it isn't a property line, it's in line to an easement, you're recommending that 5 is acceptable. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, that it also depends on, if I'm correct, the 13-foot minimum total side setback is based on a set of parameters. So it wouldn't necessarily be that for every property. It could be something different because there's a couple variables in there. So it would depend on the parcel. If that helps weigh in on any details that you're looking for. I think I understand where you're coming from. And yeah, like, to second what Kirsty said, we would, I believe we would still be coming to the board with this variance request in order for them to have the benefit of a one car attached garage.
And the 13 feet is what is that calculating? Because you mentioned
the two side setbacks
on either side. So the two sides.
So just the total. So here on this side,
yeah,
when you're there's 5 feet, and then on this side there's, we're asking for 3 feet. So it's the total of both of these side setbacks together, and that's the issue that we're running into.
I understand. Thanks for clarifying.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I guess that to me the challenge is that it is an easement, but if you, and then and is the purpose of the setback a function of proximity of one structure to the other on the other side? Is that the point of it?
Somewhat, yes, because that could dictate how noisy, how noisy it would be for the residents in the privacy of their own homes. Like I mentioned earlier, there's a number of reasons why there are setbacks beyond just state code, but one would be massing, which basically how close it would be to the adjoining building of the adjoining property, access to different like HVAC or utilities, etc., and noise. Those are sort of the main purposes of of setbacks, and we think that those would all be maintained because of the easement, right? Because of that 18-foot width you have in between, the actually more than 18 feet that you would have between the garage. You'd actually have 23 feet, right, between the garage, the north side of the garage, and the adjoining property line.
Right. And then is the driveway and the easement such that there's nothing that could be built on there in the future?
I don't know that. I would have to look into that. I mean, it's on their parcel, so I don't know the specifications of future easement possibilities. I don't know if that's something we should evaluate now or we can table. Kirsty, do you have any input on that?
Yeah, and I also wanted to follow up on Chair Zagorsk's first question in regard to if this was a property line, how would we treat it differently and things. And I just wanted to paint the picture real fast. The reason why it needs a combined setback of 13 feet is because of the unique situation that this lot is more than 50 feet wide. So because this lot is more than 50 feet wide because of the easement. And so if it was less, if the easement wasn't included in this property dimension, it wouldn't need a variance because it would just need a 5-foot setback.
I see.
The reason
That's a
that
good
it
point.
combined 13 feet is because of the width of the lot. And this is in the Old Town Historic Zoning District. So I think that can help characterize that other lots as you walk down this street are all going to have a 5-foot setback. And the reason, so if it was a property line, we wouldn't be in a position asking for an easement.
So in effect, you're recommending that we reconsider the effective width of the property given the easement, thus requiring only say a 10-foot combined versus 13. Okay. Thank you. That helps clarify it. I just wanted to understand what kind of precedent we might be setting.
There isn't a lot of lots that are more than 50 feet wide in Yountville.
And the easement, is that for the ADU? That's also part of?
No, it's actually two smaller parcels in the rear, and it's access from this as a driveway. Yountville doesn't allow the creation of flag lots.
Okay.
And so when the subdivision happened probably 20 or 30 years ago, they created an easement so that it wasn't a flag lot.
Understood.
There's two rectangular lots that are in access to the rear of this.
And to add to the ADU access, it does currently have access on the south portion of the lot, and they'll maintain that as well. So that will remain the access.
ADU is legal non-conforming because it was built with permits, but it was built not to current standards. So we consider that a legal non-conformity, and they can continue to remodel it, reface it, demolish it and rebuild it. They have a legal right for that.
Understood. Okay, thanks for being patient with me as I drove through all those questions.
Of course.
Any questions, any other questions of members to the staff before we direct our attention to the applicant and or architect? No? Okay. Yeah, I think we have a few folks. So if folks that are interested, thanks for patiently waiting through our discourse. Welcome. Looks like Peter and Anthony.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Can you hear us all right?
We can, yes. Thank
Wonderful. I'm Peter Hamilton. This is Anthony Assaretto. We own Vine Homes Construction. We're happy to be here and just really appreciate all this conversation regarding this property because you guys all know a ton and it's really helpful. And it's also great to have the opportunity to speak to some of the points you all were discussing. And so basically we're representing the owners who couldn't be here tonight. It's a family who's going to move into this property and live there. They have two high school age kids, and the husband had only one wish. The wife had many for this home, but the husband, all he wanted was one protected spot for his car. So he wanted the garage, and that was our goal in designing this with our architect, Richard Sly. And so if we look, we don't have to pull it up again, but there is 35 feet of space from the existing north side of the house to the other property line. That's a huge amount of space. And 18 feet of that is an easement that goes and provides access, a driveway, to the 2 rear lots in the back of the property. And so the subject property, 6765 Jefferson, owns the easement. It owns the entire width that we're speaking of here, and allows, the easements for the people who own in the back. And so what's great about this garage is we got the smallest size garage we could fit in there. And in some of the images Diane was showing earlier, you can see a shed on the north side of the property. And basically the garage is replacing that shed that's already existing. It's going to be attached to the house. And there's still going to be 5 feet of distance between the north side of the garage and the start of that 18-foot wide driveway. So really it's basically conforming in any other way other than the fact that this is a unique lot with some exceptional characteristics, given that it has this easement on the right. So yeah, we made sure to put it in the back half of the lot as well, which is a requirement. And we also think this will benefit the town just because it'll, it'll encourage off-street parking by having more spaces for the family to park off-street. You'll notice the Google Street View that Diane pulled had a couple cars parked in front, so that won't be the case with approval. Additionally, one person mentioned the ADU in the back of the property. Yeah, that is an existing non-conforming ADU. It would be, we can't move it a couple feet into the property, so it's just going to stay where it is, and we're going to freshen it up a little bit. But overall, we think that these plans incorporate a lot of the Old Town historic guidelines regarding, having a front porch and other elements that will tie in nicely to the goals of the Old Town Historic Code. And while, transforming a currently very dilapidated property into something very nice to look at. So if you guys have any other questions, we're happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the board to the construction team?
No specific questions. I just think it's a beautiful and creative remodel. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We really, really love what we do. And I'm a Yountville resident myself, and I love this town. So I really appreciate this conversation and everything, all the consideration that goes into really developing this town for the next generation. So it's really fun.
Good.
Likewise, thank you for your thoughtfulness and the explanation. And what we always try to do is find a balance between what the property will really benefit from, and to make sure that any variances, don't set a string of consequences that would ultimately change the spirit of what the guidelines are. So that's really the purpose of this effort. So thank you.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks.
Okay. If there are no further questions for Vine Homes Construction, I would like to now see if there's any public comment.
There's no public comment, no hands raised from the public.
Okay, going
No
once.
emails received.
Okay, no emails. All right, so I'll go ahead and close the public comment at this time, and I will now bring it back to the 3 members of the board to see if there's any comments you'd like to make or anything you want to share before we move to a motion.
I think it's very well done, and the variance seems very reasonable to me. So I support the project.
I would agree that it is well done, and I think that given the easement, it is an unusual circumstance, and so it would fit within what the code requires, that we find that it's an unusual and extraordinary circumstance. So I would agree that it would be, from my perspective, suitable for a variance.
Yeah, likewise. It was helpful to understand how the various setbacks, it's a combination of both functionality and optics, right? So that if it's a 50-foot lot, you want to maximize the use of the lot, but you still need 5 feet to get obviously past the house. There's a certain practicality there. This uniquely is a larger lot. And so in effect, the optics is not a function because there's a space on the other side there for the 5-foot rule seems to apply in this particular case. So to me, the takeaway is that if there is a side easement on a property, the rules apply as an effective lot size as opposed, or house plot size as opposed to the overall lot. So that works for me. So we'll and likewise, I think it's a really elegant and nice design, and fits really well with the rest of the style of the town. We're seeing a lot of this style, the white, the vertical seam metal roof combination. It's popping up everywhere, and I think it's universally popular. So with that, I'll pass it to any one of the members who would like to make a motion.
I will first, let me say thank you to staff for presenting the conditions of approval with the project-specific ones highlighted at the top. I very much appreciate that. It makes a lot more sense. I will make a motion to accept the project for 6765 Jefferson as presented, including the conditions of approval.
I will second that motion.
Yvonne, would you like to do the honors?
Sure. Let's see. Roll call. Hillary Tripp.
Yay, yes.
Okay. Kimberly Cook.
Yes.
Michael Zagorak.
Yes, approved.
Okay, so it's 3-0.
Okay, with that, the motion passes. Again, I wish I had a gavel because I'd use it, but you'll have to imagine it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
everyone. Have a great evening.
Thanks, guys. Right, that brings us to our next agenda, our next and last agenda item. This would be item B, 6795 Washington Street, Building B. And I'll pass it back on to staff.
So are both the other members conflicted out?
Let's see. Anyone?
So looking at the conflict map now, it seems that Michael Jordan may be conflicted out.
Oh,
And I will, so this is for an amendment to a master sign plan for Washington
So I'm
Square.
sorry, Kyle, did you say Michael Jordan is conflicted or not?
Maybe. So he's within the conflict zone for Washington Square, but not for the building that is adding the sign.
So new Vice Chair Jordan, that's your call. Typically it does go by the property boundary and not the actual structure in my experience.
Our conflicted member is still muted.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, it does appear from the conflict map boundary that I am definitely crossing the property proper, but not the exact building. So I have to leave it to the more experienced staff, I guess, to judge whether or not I should participate in this.
Well, it's ultimately your decision. If I were to be giving direction, and maybe Yvonne might know more, typically I've always gone to the property boundary because it actually affects the property, not just the building. So to be conservative, I would say if you're within the conflict of the property boundary, you're within the conflict of the structure.
Okay, well, I'll go along with your recommendation, but I would like to add, though, that I think that these radiuses are a little onerous. They're large. And I wonder if we in the future could talk about shrinking these radiuses a little bit, because, there's quite a bit of town taken up, and it would preclude me from many projects in the future. So just a thought.
Yeah,
I'll make a note of that.
In the meantime, I will place you back in the waiting room.
All right. Thank you. Sorry.
And I think for those of you know, member Jordan, he is very conflict averse. So a particularly distressing moment. And yes, with the various radii, it doesn't favor centrally located members.
Yeah, I will double check
No.
that and report at the next meeting though.
Thank you.
Okay, here all right, I think most of you have met him, but if you haven't, we are really pleased to introduce Kyle Johnson. He joined the planning department almost 2 weeks ago now, maybe even 3.
Yeah, today actually marks 4 weeks on the job.
Yeah.
4 weeks.
And Kyle comes to
Welcome.
us from a recent graduate from UC Berkeley, and he specializes in GIS, computer modeling, and urban planning. So we're really lucky to have him. And with that, I'm going to let him take his first project before you.
Yeah, hello everybody. Like Kirsty said, my name is Kyle Johnson, and I'm the new assistant planner. And I have to correct her. She said I'm from Berkeley, but I actually went to school in Santa Barbara. It's a little bit sunnier down there and warmer. So glad to meet you all and be interacting with you here. So for our presentation, I'll share screen, pull up a picture for you all. Can you see that?
Yes.
All right, before you today is an application for a master sign plan amendment for the already existing Washington Square master sign plan. The applicant is Hillstone Homes, and they're requesting the addition of a 10.3 square foot sign to be mounted on the eave above the entry to their building. As indicated in the staff report, the Washington Square master sign plan allows for 164 square feet of signage, and 52 square feet remains unused. So that being said, this sign complies with the amount of signage allowed. And the sign's design is wood panel painted black with white letters and complies with design requirements. So staff recommends the board approves this amendment for its simplicity and compliance with the ordinance. If you have any questions, you may direct them to myself, Kirsty, or the applicant who is also here with us.
Thank you. As a reminder, this will be the chance for the board members to direct their questions specifically to staff before we move to the applicant themselves. So I'll pass it over to members of the board, see if they have any questions. I'll just, yes, Hillary.
So I just wanted to ask Kyle, and this is because I'm a new member, just procedurally, does this signage meet all the requirements of the ordinances, or is there some particular reason that the ZDRB needs to approve this?
Yeah, so the reason ZDRB has to approve this is because it's part of a master sign plan. If this building was standalone on its own property, then it wouldn't need to go to ZDRB since it complies with everything. It's just because it's part of a bigger group.
All signs automatically get routed through us.
Okay, thank you.
If you're gives meaning to the expression, are you looking for a sign? But it's a fair and important question, obviously, because there have been many interesting discussion about signage. So it's always fair game. Any other questions of staff? Member Cook, Miller?
I think my questions will more be directed to the applicant.
Okay. Okay, well, with that, then we'll pass it on to the...
Before you move to the applicant, I just wanted to share, which I'm sure the board already realized, but the property, the building B, is already under a use permit that allows for retail. The intention of Hillstone Home is to reactivate that space with no exterior changes. We are in support, very much in support of getting some active retail that's diverse in the north end of town. So we're hoping that this encourages occupying in a space that's truly 100% retail, and I can direct it to Lakeisha if you wanted to describe anything. It's not under the board's purview. It's already under an existing use permit, but I did want to share with the board that this sign does mean that we might get some retail there.
Thank you for the context. And it looks like Mr. Patel will be representing the property.
I am, thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to add about the sign itself? Just some more background or information, and then after if you're finished, I think we know at least Member Cook has maybe a question or two for you.
Just very briefly, we're thinking of doing a retail a concept there with reference to home goods, books, hopefully skewed towards architecture, design, and food, obviously. And the idea was to have a very simple sign on the north side facing Madison, trying to keep it as, I don't want to call it rustic, but as simple as possible. No glitz and glamour in terms of in keeping with the design of the existing structure.
Great. Thank you very much. We'll direct member questions your way, and we'll start with Member Cook, who expressed interest.
My two questions. One is the main traffic area is the other side of the building. Wouldn't you want to have a sign on that side also?
What our thought was that most people coming into Yountville will pass that area in front of where Madison is, and then also where the bike lane is. So our thought is that you would get a little bit more exposure in terms of sign. And I think once you're within Washington Square itself, I think the hope is that people would meander through different buildings and find, almost a building that they can stumble onto. That was a thought process in terms of putting the sign to the north side.
I would think signs on both sides would be ideal, and I would personally think that maybe the sign on Madison should be a little more. I appreciate the simplicity and the elegance, but I think it might be missed with white on black, would just be my comments. I won't object if that's how you want to do it, but I'm not sure everybody's going to see it given the trees and the foliage that's usually, there's a whole row of sycamore trees out on the sidewalk too, on the park strip. So sure. it may not be seen, is my concern. But those are all my concerns.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Although careful what you wish for, it might come back bright pink.
Yeah. No, I think the thought right now is to keep it as low key as possible. I think we want to start building up the business as we get a little bit more comfortable with it. And our thought is, it would be more of a sign in our opinion is going to be a secondary type of a scenario. I think if people come to R&D, they'd be walking around that area where the Bosque area is, and then would try and discover a home goods a retail outlet. Is our hope that it becomes more of a pedestrian type of a scenario.
Thank you very much. Any other questions of the applicant and board?
My questions were along the same lines. And I wondered if the staff could clarify the requirement for Hillstone Group, given that they are part of that whole property, and explain to us the credits that they're using for this sign and what they have remaining. And then maybe Mr. Patel could speak to why they're being conservative about the signage, the credits that they have, and what they perhaps intend.
Yeah, so when the master sign plan was originally approved, they were given 164 square feet to work with. And of that 164, 52 square feet remains. And each building is allowed a certain amount of space, but that's not, that's something that the owner can decide, and it's not specified in this master sign plan. So there is no minimum or maximum that Hillstone can have, and they've chosen to only use 10.
I mean, if I were to take a really broad view of Hillstone as a restaurant group, we typically are relying on word of mouth for our business rather than signage pulling people in. Rutherford Grill is ours. Los Altos Grill. Most of those buildings with signage are really insignificant. R&D does really well, and it's we like to think it's a good product. And through word of mouth, we're going to get business traffic coming through. So we tend not to maximize signage. Signage becomes a part of the design of the architecture as a whole. And we tend not to rely it being a billboard, as it were, for our product.
I also wanted to take a minute and just respond to Commissioner Cook's kind of recommendation to also include some signage on the other side of the entry. And courtyard signs not visible from a public street are exempt from that master sign plan.
Okay.
So if it looks like they wanted to add some kind of directional signs from inside the Washington Square courtyard, they could do so without ZDRB or even probably planning approval, but this specific section, subsection J of section 17.15202. So that might be helpful.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Member Tripp, any questions for the applicant?
No questions, other than I'm delighted to see more retail coming to the area in that particular area. So that's great news.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just have one clarifying question. So only because it's not specified and we're being thorough, so it'll be a black sign with white or off-white lettering. I presume it'll be metal. I just didn't get specifics in terms of the materials.
So right now we're looking at a wood panel that would paint the background to, and then the letters would be painted on top of that.
And would it be affixed to the beam, or would it be hanging in front?
It'll be fixed.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, and I would add obviously that the Hillstone Group is nothing if not savvy business folks who have a knack for building services and experiences that people value. So the extension into home and in this location should be something to pay attention to. So happy to see that progress.
Thank you.
With that, I will see if there's any comment. I don't believe there is. So we'll open and quickly close that and then pass it back to the board for wrap up to see if there's any other questions or comments before making motions.
No, I'm good with it.
Okay. I think general enthusiasm all around. So I will leave the window open for anyone to make a motion. I'll start. I'll make a motion to approve the design as presented.
I will second.
Okay. Yvonne?
No, it's fine.
Pass it over to Yvonne to do the roll call.
Okay, Hillary Tripp,
Yay, I approve.
Kimberly Cook,
Yes.
Stephen Miller,
Aye.
and Michael
I do.
Zoricek.
I do.
Okay, so that's 4-0.
Okay. With that, the motion is approved. Thank you very much, Mr. Patel, for spending time with us and going through the detail. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your time.
With that, we've gone through the agenda, and unless there's anything else or any other further commentary, at this time, we are in a position to make a motion to adjourn. Does anybody want to?
Oh, I have one more thing.
Oh.
I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware that there is an upcoming planning commissioners conference